Please keep. Great. Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody to the August 19th Natchaug Advisory Board Committee meeting. Maura's just going to flip through a couple of slides here and then we'll do our roll call. We don't have anybody new. I'm not sure who's online. Let's see. Deborah's here. Nobody new. Okay, great. But I think we, just for the record, we should have people just quickly introduce themselves again. Okay, so I'm going to start just by doing roll call. I'm Kathy Demers from Willington Conservation Commission. We'll go this way to Maura.
Mara Roby, ECCD.
Roger Wolf, Eastford Conservation Commission.
John Meyer, I'm just the landowner on the river in Chaplin.
Mike Callahan from the Willimantic Waterworks.
I'm Cassidy Plod from the Last Green Valley.
Okay, and then our folks online, maybe starting with Deb Lee. Kat.
Hi, Deb Lee from Eastford Conservation Commission, Inland Wetlands Commission, and Stewie the cat.
I don't know who's next. I'm Prentice Balcom. I'm a volunteer with the Last Green Valley.
Hi, Prentice.
Hi, Deborah. I thought I recognized your name. Hi, how are you?
I'm Mark Cardwell. I'm from Trout Unlimited, but I'm also a member of the Hampton Conservation Commission.
I'm Jean Dismay. I'm just an interested party from the town of Wyndham.
I'm Megan Trujillo from the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District.
I'm Joe Hendrick, Ashford Conservation Commission.
Okay, is that everyone? Anyone not have a chance to speak? All right, we'll continue by asking people if they can give a work group update. I can start by talking about the Forest Health and Open Space Preservation Work Group. We met on 8/14 and we really talked a lot about what we could do to educate forest landowners as well as municipal land use officials about forest management and preservation. We started off really by discussing some of what's already out there, what's available, what partners we might want to work with. And I can just kind of go over some of the thoughts and ideas that came from that meeting. We did note that Yukon Extension Forestry has already been designing and rolling out programs for forest landowners as well as forest practitioners in the past. So I had contacted Tom Worthley and they're willing to try to work with us to design something that would really kind of focus on watershed issues. One of the things too we identified just in general was that this forestry and open space group might overlap a little bit with municipal land use officials group because we're also trying to reach out to members of planning and zoning, inland wetlands, zoning boards of zoning appeals, and so on. Cassidy from the Last Green Valley let us know that there's a booklet online that woodland owners can read about conservation options, and it's called Your Family Land, Legacy or Memory. Also, the Last Green Valley is possibly planning a workshop that they're going to hold for woodland landowners this winter called Family Land Conservation 101. So it's kind of the basics of maybe how to start conversation with your families about, the future of your land. So that would be something we might be able to partner with them or help advertise. We really were quite blessed to have Dan Evans with us. We thank Roger for connecting him to our group. Dan Evans is a state forester, and he discussed a lot of various programs from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, that would be available to private woodland owners. For example, like DEEP Service Forestry Program, which offers advice and assistance to private and municipal woodland owners related to forest management and resources. There's also a program that DEEP partners with several other organizations called the Master Woodland Manager Program, which provides forest stewardship education to woodland owners, as well as land managers. So it's something that, for example, even land trusts can take advantage of, their land managers. And it's a combination of an online education program with in-person classes and field training. And another aspect of this is anybody who graduates from this program is encouraged to provide outreach and education to other forest landowners. So we're going to work on contacting the leads on that program and see how we can partner better and maybe even get some of their graduates to work with us on, educating landowners within the watershed. Also, James L. Goodwin State Forest and Conservation Center in Hampton offers in-person education about wildlife and forest conservation. They have an online calendar of events, as well as self-guided forest tours that people can walk to see the woodland management using a cell phone. We talked about some other opportunities for self-guided silviculture tours in the other state forests. And Dan thought that there might be some opportunities coming up since they're planning some timber harvest operations in the Nipmuc State Forest in Union. They might be able to do some educational walks there to talk about forest conservation and also to teach best management practices. We talked about possibly doing a silviculture tour at Fenton Ruby Park in Willington, since we had a past timber harvest there about 6 years ago that Dan was involved with. Also, we talked about the Forest Legacy Program, which is administered by DEEP, provides federal funding for purchasing development rights on large tracts of private forest land. And we have a contact for that, Dan Perico from Forest Legacy. Also, Dan talked about the outreach forester that DEEP now has, Beth Bernard, and we might be able to connect with her to facilitate some educational opportunities. And DEEP also has a land acquisition program. So the state does buy forest land for recreation, wildlife habitat, but right now they have a lack of property agents who would close on the deals, and that program, although it's in effect, probably is a little bit behind. So people can still apply to that program, and it's something we'll get more information about so we can share that with forest landowners. We talked about how to increase the number of forest acres managed under forest management plans. And we learned that the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, does have federal funds to help cover costs of the forest management plans, but currently they have limited staff resources to administer that program. So we're going to reach out to Yale Forest to see if maybe they have forestry students that can assist with the forest management planning.
Yeah, they do.
We also talked about developing priorities in the watershed for open space and forest preservation. And we talked about what's already been developed. And the Last Green Valley website does have a map with multiple GIS layers, including open space areas that are within the 35 towns of the National Heritage Corridor. And all of the Natchaug Watershed towns are on that map. So that might be a planning tool that we can use. And Dan also noted that the Connecticut Forest Action Plan and the Nature Conservancy's Resiliency Mapping Program can be a valuable tool for identifying priority areas.
A quick question before I forget.
Yeah.
So is those online, is that Last Green Valley, are those online resources? Those are maps that are available just by going on your website?
Yes, they are publicly available by going on our website to anybody. And I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but we do have a GIS consultant in the budget that has not been passed yet for next year.
Well, we'll pray on that one. And then the other mapping that I just mentioned, the Connecticut Forest Action Plan and the Nature Conservancy's resiliency mapping programs are available online to anybody. So we'll look, as a group, we'll look further into that and how we might be able to use it. So as far as next steps, we're going to develop our plan of work. Really, I think this first meeting was more kind of a, I don't want to say a fact finding, but understanding what the resources are that are out there, what programs are already out there for educating forest landowners as well as municipal land use officials. And we'll kind of come back at our next meeting and start to formulate which direction we want to head and what partners we want to work with.
Was there any mention of the Eastern Connecticut Forest Landowners Association or any involvement from them?
We didn't discuss them in detail because I'm going to be setting up a meeting with their board. They were pretty busy with the Woodstock Fair when I had contacted them. But yes, they're definitely a potential partner. So thank you for asking about that, Roger. And also Joshua's Trust. I have a meeting set up with them as well, just to talk about how we can work on forest preservation, you know, with their open space priorities as well. Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts to add? You know, even though you might be on another work group, if there's any other information that might be helpful to our group, please feel free to share that either today or you can get in touch with Maura. Thanks. All right, healthy residential landscapes and septic system work group. And we have a report.
All right, so we met on the 5th of this month. It is a fairly small working group, but we had a lot of great ideas. So the first one we talked about was basically landowner outreach and people who live on lakes. A program that I've been involved with in the past was the Lake Smart program out of Maine, and I think it's a really great model for something that we can do moving forward. And it's basically giving landowners the tools to implement best management practices and giving them an award that's completely voluntary when they do so many best management practices. So like not using certain fertilizers or not using fertilizers at all, rain gardens, things of that nature. I have reached out, but I'm waiting to hear back to see if we can use their already existing things down here in Connecticut or what that would look like. We also talked about vocational retraining, so holding a talking series based on different levels of learners. Basic, intermediate, and advanced for residents, master gardeners, professional landscapers, basically just, again, on those best management practices for stormwater runoff, rain gardens, buffers, pollinator plants, that sort of thing. We also talked about installing a rain garden or riparian buffer as a BMP as part of the required project. We talked about Roseland Park and Woodstock because there's so much controversy there lately with the new paving of the parking lots and everything. We thought maybe putting another rain garden in would be important there. I've since learned only half of Roseland is in the watershed. Like only half of the park flows into the Natchaug, which I didn't realize, but that is what Lois said. We also talked about on the Yukon campus or Lauder Park in Willimantic, and we also discussed pulling in more garden clubs, master gardeners, and other local organizations. And then we also talked about working with ECSU, Yukon, high school students, and just really bringing in a lot more volunteers and what that would look like on these initiatives.
Thank you. And also just a note to everybody who's listening today, you know, don't feel like you have to write a lot of notes on this because Each of the work groups did write their minutes up, and they are available. Maura sent out a Google Drive link that anybody can go on and read the minutes and comment on them. So if you are listening today, don't feel like you have to scribble down everything that's being said. Thanks. Okay, next report, riparian wildlife corridors and pollinator pathway group.
Hi. So we met on the 15th, just the other day, and discussed various things related to streams and the connecting riparian pathways, and also controlling invasive plants in those riparian areas, and the getting people interested in these through promoting towns to participate in the pollinator pathway projects. Joe talked about all the work he's done in Ashford, on the Fenton River, where there are parts of the Fenton River riparian zone that are in town parks there in Ashford, and he's been working on some control efforts, and so he was going to look into that and see if in other towns they're doing similar projects or along the same lines, and try to get some connections there with the other towns. Also, we talked about in these connected riparian zones, also identifying wildlife corridors in them, and trying to understand the conflicts between the wildlife corridors and human use of hiking trails, because in our area, a lot of the hiking trails, whether they're maintained by towns or in the Connecticut Park and Forest Association blue trails, they run right along the edges of Bigelow Brook or Fenton River or Still, etc. So that was identified as a possible conflict there. Let's see. We talked about trying to identify the various pollinator pathway activities that may be going on in the towns of the watershed. They may not be officially connected to the national pollinator pathway movement, but they're probably in the various towns programs going on, and it'd be nice to connect with them. They could be a source of people to help expand that program in our area, and also I think connect them with the idea of invasive plant removal and planting more native plants in riparian zone. Let's see. And the there are a lot of, listening to what's people have talked about so far, there's a lot of interconnections with the other groups. And we want to, in the future, also release information, collect and release information on proper or recommended herbicide, insecticide, fertilizer use in the riparian zone. And that, so we spent a fair amount of time talking about, situations in which herbicides might be appropriate, etc. We wanted to identify projects that we could promote public involvement, just like just previously mentioned, to try and involve younger people in these projects. For example, it was mentioned that Joshua Trust has connections with Yukon students, but at other colleges, at Eastern and the community colleges, technical colleges, and so on, and high schools, it would be good if we could connect with them and get them interested in these projects. And also to we thought it was good to, as far as a service for the public, to collate information on native plants and their availability to people in the area without having to travel all over New England to try and locate these. And there's talk about using material from the Northeast Seed Collective and working to distribute that in the watershed area. And I think that's about it for what we talked about.
Thanks, Deb. That sounds like you accomplished a lot at that meeting. That's great. Does anybody, and I should have asked after Cassidy had gone over the healthy residential landscapes, but if anybody has any comments or questions for the work group leader, just, put your hand up or speak up. Joe.
This is Joe Hendrick. I would just correct that the river in question in Ashford is the Mount Hope that runs through the middle of town.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I noted that riparian buffers came up in a number of the work groups' interest, that they were of interest. So I think that's something that, yeah, I'd love to figure out how we'll kind of synergize that going forward. And lastly, our particular working group is heavily represented between Eastford and Ashford, which there's the riparian border of the Bigelow Brook is the border between Eastford and Ashford. So we're actually kind of rich in very good riparian habitat. So it will be interesting to hear what the interests are of folks from the more developed towns.
This is Mark Cardwell. I actually have a question for the pollinator folks, just as a point of information. In Hampton, we've been trying to get someone who can speak to how to deal with we want to protect our milkweed that's in fields that are also being harvested for hay. And we're trying to get somebody who knows when would be an appropriate, if there are any appropriate times to cut fields that have a lot of milkweed in them. Do you guys have any insight into somebody who might have that kind of pollinator plant expertise that we could tap into?
We'll have to
Mike,
think about
you had your
that.
hand up.
Yeah,
Sorry?
to answer Joe's question, the Joshua Trust has made a commitment and has staff resources and members that are very interested in grasslands and we've all talked about open space and forests, but or I think most of us often, those are the two categories, but Joshua Trust, I know they have a strong interest in the notion of meadows and the importance of meadows. And in Chaplin, they have a open space that they're managing, and they have a farmer that hays it, but it's on a 3-year schedule. And Joshua Trust is pretty concerned about time of year and things like that. So I think the simple answer to Joe is there are definitely some folks at Joshua Trust who might be a resource in that area. And I would strongly suggest, and that's a really concrete way, in my opinion, to involve them, because it kind of overlaps one of their, I don't want to say it's a new focus, but it's a new interest of theirs. And I know they've spent some time thinking about it. So the answer might be with Joshua Trust, and maybe there's a partner relationship there.
Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. I know they have a land manager for their properties, and I'm actually going today, and I can just check in with them.
Who are you meeting with, Kathy?
I'm meeting with Marie Cantino, who's education outreach.
She's a staff person there, right?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and there are a number of long-term members, or on the board or not, that are, like I said, are pretty active and the very hands-on. They've done some controlled burns. A close friend of mine his pet project is invasives, and he's very, very knowledgeable. And I know they have a staff member or a couple of staff members who have the technical expertise to at least start answering some of Joe's questions, and maybe even some of ours or other groups as we start working through it. So I would press them a little.
Sure. Does anybody else have any ideas or suggestions, Roger?
I would also suggest Andy Reznikevich with Connecticut Audubon in Pomfret. Very good resource there. And I also know some folks in DEP Wildlife that could probably give some good information on that as well.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that if I could, and add on to Deb's talking about the group. I just wanted to say we had again, thank you to Roger, we had Jane Seymour from Deep Wildlife, who was very integral in helping us to understand some things that we, weren't thinking of because of her knowledge. And the whole the pathways along streams, I think, came up because sometimes there's fishermen pathways, especially along the Mount Hope. But I think the solution was that they actually interrupt some habitat of streamside, critters and plants and things. So pulling those pathways back, and then having only particular once in a while places where you can go out to the stream. So having a path out to the stream. So I thought that was really interesting. I just wanted to say that. So I think we had a lot of good conversation, and I wonder if the groups, if it's possible to try to connect what was discussed with the work plan items, so that sheet that I provided for everybody with the examples of opportunities, and I think they were mentioned in the past ones, but to just say, connecting habitat corridors adjacent to streams was an actual one that was suggested in the plan, and that is something that Deb brought up. And then Natchaug Regional Pollinator Pathway. So that was another one that was in there, because we're going to need to start, and it's probably my fault for not saying that, to start thinking in terms of at our next work group meetings, I just suggest that those things get really defined a lot further so that then hopefully soon each of the groups can come to this main meeting with solid kind of like, okay, these are the 2 or 3 things that we chose so we can get it down into a work plan. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later, into a format. So that's kind of just my 2 cents on like, if you can think of like the way, and most people I think numbered items. And so just point that out, like these are the opportunities that we would like to, pursue and then maybe bring in the next meeting or 2. Yeah, so thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments today? Okay. If we could have a report from Cold Water Stream Habitat and Connectivity Work Group.
That would be me. So actually, Mark is the lead for that. And I thought, Mark, that you weren't going to be at the meeting. So I was prepared to
just sit in for a few minutes. So I'm actually going to be bailing out in a couple of minutes. So yes, but I was able to get in for a little bit.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you that well. Can you say that again?
I said I have to leave in a couple of minutes, but I was able to at least join the first piece of it. So
So you want me to go ahead and do the?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Mark will be doing this hopefully in the future. And again, thanks to everyone that stepped up to be a lead in each of these groups, because I think, it's not easy to want to do that. And, thank you. All right. So as far as what we discussed, and I'll put it in the terms of like, so one of the opportunities we talked about could be to review culvert survey data for fish passage obstructions. So headwater streams are really important refuge during droughts, especially. So when the main streams are getting too warm because they don't have enough forest cover, they tend to go to these other, headwater streams. And they need those connections, the fish, and to get there. So that's the point of, kind of reviewing culvert survey data. And luckily we had Helen from CCOG, who was on the group, who talked about NAACC, which is the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative. It's a mouthful. And she knew a lot about that. And so she was going to go on and create some more current maps. You can get those off of there because people have already done, some of these surveys, and it's in a specific format and protocol. So she has experience doing some of that training protocol with the Nature Conservancy and then coastal towns in Connecticut. So it also, she told us, lines up, there's a new state requirement for towns to map all stream crossings by 2028. So we're talking about specifically the culverts that are a road stream crossing because those are the ones where the fish need to be able to migrate. So there was some good conversation around that. Another opportunity would be stressors to cold water stream habitat and exploring that and what we could do about that. Mark has some expertise with Trout Unlimited. So he mentioned they can repair washouts and erosion on rivers and streams. They have expertise in their group and can access also national resources with other groups for manpower. So potential local partners could be Joshua's Trust. Again, I don't know if we're putting too much on poor Joshua's Trust people, but it's a good connection. And then because of their high school and UConn students, of course, again. But he also mentioned local sportsmen's clubs that have a conservation component, which I didn't realize they did. So that was good new information. And they also, you may have heard of Trout in the Classroom that Trout Unlimited also does. So maybe we could somehow combine something like that. And also just discuss like a potential in all of this to install a BMP such as a riparian buffer. So I think, that's something that keeps coming up, potentially working with other groups. It was mentioned here, it could be possibly at a campground, because they often have issues because of the high usage. Or even, reaching out to DPW. Deb had talked about doing that in her town, just to see if there's, we try to find places where we overlap, with them. They may have issues they know about. They know their roads and their culvert crossings the best. So I think that's a great way to try to approach that as well. Let's see. So Mark had mentioned that the TU, Trout Unlimited membership, would be interested in doing a demonstration for the May Wyndham Waterworks Day, Field Day, and tour. But he did mention that fly fishing may not appeal to those who don't already do it. So, we can reconsider that. Maybe it's a regular fishing. I don't know. So that's something to think about. And then it was important to the group that we have public outreach, and I've heard that theme a number of times in the work groups, which is great. We want to try to build community, advertise things in local newspapers, advertise projects, like really try to get local community involved in these things. We could even show data in formats like online story maps, and outreach events, which we'll be talking about later. So let's see. I wondered also if there was we didn't talk about it in the group, but Cassidy, you're Last Green Valley, and they have the cold water stream habitat monitoring. And that is a possibility, that was listed in this group. So maybe, if we had some information from you, that would be really great, I think, for this group. And then, of course, there's some next steps, and everybody stepped up to I'm going to contact a deep fisheries person, from Mark said. And so it's really great because everybody's just, has things that they know that they can do. So I won't go into all the things that people talked about, but yeah, so that was great. Does anybody have anything they want to add that's in the group? And maybe we should say who's in the group this is Mike Turgeon, Mike Stankov, although I don't think you were there.
I was not there.
You were not there. Myself, Kathy. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. No wonder. I'm like, wait, Kathy wasn't there. Sorry, Mark, Deb, Helen, and then myself was that last group.
Thanks, Maura.
You did a great job. Thank you, Maura.
I wonder, when you were talking about something that could be done at the Waterworks Field Day, I'm just wondering if, between Trout Unlimited and Deep, something about trout habitat, maybe, I don't know if this is possible, but bringing some fish that people could see and talking a little bit more about, the habitat that trout need and why these, excuse me, these streams are so important, and cover over the streams and so on. Though, I'm just trying to think of something that's a bit broader than fly fishing, which I'm sure you guys will think about. So great. Any other thoughts on this particular work group? Okay. All right, moving on. Municipal Land Use Officials Education Work Group.
Yeah, so that is me again. The lead for this is Tyler, and he couldn't be here. So this group is Mike Turgeon, Mike Stankoff, Kathy, Tyler, and Helen. So as far as opportunities, I think the municipal regulatory land use volunteer training opportunities was talked about quite a bit. The team is looking to develop some type of curriculum for local land use education and training workshops. Work on creating town-specific LID, low impact development checklists. There is also one in the plan, the Natchaug plan, as well as Mansfield has a very good one. And yeah, there was a lot of talk about, the challenges in the watersheds. There was opinions on implementing strategies for the municipal and staff engagement, training requirements, and watershed management. And we talked about how intermunicipal collaboration is a very important part of land and source water protection, and agreed that important tasks would be connecting with town officials, organizing specific workshops for outreach and education, and just trying to figure out overall how to improve communication between municipalities and Wyndham Waterworks, the requirements that they have. So another opportunity could be informed land use decision-making by municipal officials, investigating funding for tax policy incentives. So that's the state statute, PA 490, really just making sure that all towns are taking advantage to adopt the PA 490 ability to have landowners have reduced tax for farms and forests and open space. So there's different things that towns have adopted. I think most towns do have a lot of these, but just really making sure that if they can, they're taking advantage. Another opportunity, reduced inputs to natural resources from new development. So work on developing ordinance language for towns with current regulations to help develop protection efforts without current regulations. Sorry, that didn't make sense. So exploring options also for maybe speakers. Tyler did do these minutes, and I think it had a lot to do with, he had met with Connecticut Rural Water and Wastewater Association, CTRWWA. I don't know a lot about them other than they support the rural utilities, and they could be helpful to assist and support in source water protection planning. So I'll be interested to hear more about that. I know that he had met with them, Mike Hage and Henry Cutler from that group. So that's good to know there's other support out there. And then someone else mentioned sustainable CT. I think it was Mike Turgeon, that there's a possibility that because they're already doing things, we could kind of connect into that program to get incentives to the towns to get, these awards and things as maybe an incentive for them to do these extra things. And the group talked about starting to think about planning for the Wyndham Waterworks May tour day. And it was discussed that considered that maybe a large part of the success of the work group is going to be adjusting to and adapting to town specific needs, staffing and regulations, because towns can be very different in how they operate. So just keeping all of that in mind. And then Tyler was going to provide a watershed map, but I think you're going to talk about that. Yeah, Kathy's going to talk about that a little bit, maybe the next slide, I'm not sure. I think that was pretty much it, except, we have some next steps that people volunteered to follow up on. Again, I won't go through them all, but lots of good energy and yeah, keep it going.
All right, any questions or comments on that particular work group effort? Okay, I think I would agree, with Maura that it will be interesting and to try to partner with more of the land use commissions because they are different in every town. And, some are way ahead in their regulatory efforts and their plan of conservation and development, and others not so much. And there's a lot of challenges with small towns because they have limited budgets and there's a lot of concern about how do they bring development to the town to help with their tax revenue. So, we'll have to be mindful of that as we're working with them and what we're asking of them. Okay, and then the last work group, agriculture work group. We don't have anybody that has signed up for that work group yet. If anybody's interested, we're hoping that some people will step forward to be on that group. We're also asking other members here to consider if you know of somebody that's involved on your town's ag commission. So I think the towns that have ag commissions are Woodstock, Ashford, and Mansfield. Also, we might be able to get somebody from one of the conservation commissions that has an interest in ag. So if anybody knows of anyone in the 8 towns that might be interested to kind of work on that work group, let us know. The other thing is that I'm not sure we've really reached out to Yukon Extension and their ag people.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
wonder
idea.
if we could consider that.
Okay. And I was going to mention that, I don't know if Joe, you can talk about, you've got a few connections there in Ashford that you've been kind of working on. Do you have a kind of an update? Just BOTL Farm, BOTL, I think is one of them.
Yeah, I'm working. It's a very busy season for farmers. But our Ag Commission is having a special meeting tomorrow, and I'm probably just gonna crash it just to let them know of our interest. But yeah, I'm working on it, and basically I'm working via email because they're all really, really busy.
Thanks, Joe. That's a great idea. If anybody from, that lives in Mansfield or Woodstock wants to crash their ag commission.
Well, I was going to suggest
Just
you ask to be on their agenda because
Yeah.
maybe it's not the same of Board of Selectmen, but I don't think you can crash Board of Selectmen meetings from what I'm told. Yeah, so thank you, Joe. Yeah, Joe had some good connections. And I also want to mention, if maybe you were going to mention this, Kathy, but that Northeast Connecticut, they call it Grown Connected. That's an amazing guide. There's a new guide out, 2025, and that is Yukon Extension, actually. And so there's a whole list of farms and farmers markets that appear to be up to date since it says it's 2025. That seems to be half the battle sometimes when you have these older, they might have gone out of business. So if anyone wants to look at that guide, and I will send a link along with the minutes to this meeting. And, if you know any people that are farmers that, might be smaller farmers, so they have I don't know if they have more time, probably not, but, just trying to find a way to really incorporate farmers and farms. And because that is a big piece of addressing, some kind of pollutants in the watershed. So it would be nice to get that work group going. So, yeah.
Maybe a way in Eastford we don't have an ag commission. So I was trying to think of ways to infiltrate. But Ashford has their farmers market. Maybe other towns have farmers market. Might be a way to schmooze with people who are in agriculture and see what their interests are. For example, Kelly Cass, I think she lives in Chaplin, maybe. And she used to work for Yukon Extension. Maybe still does part-time.
Oh, yes. Thank you for mentioning her, Deb.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
To the farmer's market,
Yeah, I know her.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think of her. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, she has a little farm.
Yeah.
I staff the Mansfield Agriculture Committee, so I'll put this on our agenda for next week.
Good.
Thank you, Mike. And Cassidy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of wanted to clarify that we are going to be looking for like farmers more than, or not more than, but in addition to people who are in agriculture. At the Last Green Valley, we do have a really strong working relationship with a lot of different farmers. So if we could put together something that I could send out, I know we're having a big event this Sunday that a lot of farmers locally in the area are going to be at Taste of the Valley. And we know it's a very, very busy time for everybody because it's kind of peak harvest season. But we actually have a ton of different farmers cooking different meals. We're having a 5-course meal for our fundraiser event that we have. So we do have a lot of farmers coming to that event this Sunday.
Yeah, so thank you. They'd have to be in the watershed, right? So they might not know if they're in the, because not everybody knows. So maybe just take a look beforehand, and if there's farms you see. Yeah, I mean, we definitely would like that viewpoint, of course, but knowing that like it's really difficult to get farmers, and I don't know the answer. And I think that's the $1 million question, is how to get them to get their input. Sometimes they'll take polls and things. So, we could sort of talk about that, but at least if we could get some folks who are on ag commissions or, have some knowledge, like Yukon Extension folks, to sort of start thinking about, that could be part of what the work group wants to do, is like, how do we reach out to farmers, and then, have some of the work be that, and maybe be able to do polls and things like that. So, yeah, if you can, I mean.
The other thing I'm wondering is at NRCS, do they know of anybody that they tend to connect with more in this area?
I mean, I think it's the same kind of thing. Like, I know a lot of the farmers in this, like in Woodstock, but I just know they wouldn't have the time, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't even think we'd bother. And, some of them are the large dairy farms that are already working with NRCS, and I know that they're already doing really great things. I feel like maybe focusing on these smaller farms might be a key to getting like a little more.
Okay, I was just wondering if they were already connected with some farms that are doing some management with NRCS that could be like a role model.
Yeah.
Or you could have a tour, of what they.
Oh, yeah, that for sure.
Yeah.
I just, as far as like, first you would need to get our ag, group up and going, and then I could connect with different folks. Yeah, for sure.
One angle might be with the farm preservation, land preservation groups. Yeah, and maybe people know in their towns of, farmers who have expressed an interest in this, and they might, not that they're going to have a great amount of time, but they might be worth interviewing, to get some input in there. And then, for example, in our town, we have one farmer who has supplemented his income by sponsoring a I don't know what you call it, trucks driving through mud. What is that? And that's, it strikes me as that might not be a something that we'd want to promote, but I mean it indicates to me a certain amount of desperately trying to keep the farm going and coming up with some alternative way to bring some bucks in. at least talking to them about it. Because I mean, that's got to have an effect on watershed areas with, trucks crossing streams and motorcycles and such.
That's a good point. A lot of what happens on farms is as of right, meaning that there's a lot of leeway that they have in terms of what they can do on the property without the town itself with zoning regulations and so on being, can't regulate those things. Same with timber harvests. So that's good to keep mindful of. And you're absolutely right. Farmers are trying to survive and they're looking for options and alternatives of how they can use the land on the side. I know in our town we have destination wedding in one of the farms. But that's interesting. You're saying that, like a mud pit or allowing people to come out and just drive around and make, a mess. Thank you. Could be an issue definitely for, water quality issues. So good to be aware of that.
A comment on, in addition to Yukon Extension, perhaps the Agricultural Experiment Station, Connecticut Ag Experiment Station may have some connections, some farms up this way. I don't know. I don't know anybody particular in the farming part of the Ag Experiment Station, but I do know some folks down there. I could ask around and see if they have any connections up this way or farms that they might recommend and people get in touch with. So I can do that.
Thank you. Mike asks, what's your connection to the Ag Commission?
So I'm their staff. So I set their agenda. I mean, I don't set the agendas. The chair sets the agendas, but I prep the agendas. I keep track of communications as they come into office. And I'm primary liaison for anyone who's looking to contact them. Yep.
Good to know. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that work group? And remember,
So there's one thing, Mansfield right now, I actually don't know if this is in Natchaug Watershed or if this is in Willimantic Watershed because we straddle that. But we are in the early stages of starting to look at putting in a denitrifying bioreactor on town land. There's a well-studied pond that we have that we know it's more oligotrophic than we would like it to be. And so we're working with a stormwater professor at UConn to start exploring whether or not we could apply for the state's 319 program in order to do some stormwater improvements for denitrifying ultimate feeds into Long Island Sound. That is something, if there are farmers in particular that have nitrogen sources that are leaching, that which they do because that's how farming works. That's a program that could potentially be good, particularly if this body served as a vehicle for several farmers across different towns. I know Ashford has some large farmers. Generally, if you're only on a couple acre fields, it's not worthwhile. But if you had something large that's a significant source, if you could get a bunch of people together as a coalition, have this organization kind of like serve as the locus that actually applies and say, all these are within our purview, we're trying to do this, that could be something. That could be something that could be like a really good way to improve watershed health. We're very early in the process, so I'm actually, the reason I wasn't going to be here because I was supposed to be on a meeting with that, but my collaborators are now handling that. That's something that I think for agriculture would be very obvious. And if the money pretty much all comes from the state, and then you can mostly manage to get this through match time by matching salaries of people who are working on the project, then we might be able to get some stuff because it's farmers getting something for nothing. And that could be really, really good.
good thought.
Can you explain that a little more? Because I don't know if everybody knows what denitrifying bioreactor.
Yeah, absolutely. My brain's very scattered today, and I'm just using the jargon like I tell people not to.
Why I asked.
So a denitrifying bioreactor is the best way I can describe this is it is a swale that you have filled with wood chips. So what you do is the normal flow of a stream as it comes out of a pond or is passing through an area that has a large nitrogen load into it, often a farm field, but it can be any number of things, is picking up that nitrogen. Nitrogen will bind out of the water column into carbon-rich sediments and other places. So what you can do is you can create, and this works best where you kind of have like a fork in a water body that comes back together, but you can create an artificial one. You create a primary pathway, a new primary pathway for the stream, just move it over just a little bit. It's a little bit lower than the existing pathway, which serves as an overflow. And what you do is you fill the bottom of this with wood chips. And so you add a very large, clean carbon sink that can absorb a large amount of nitrogen as it flows through and out of the water column. And what that'll do is it'll pull that nitrogen out, and it works for about 15 years. And then the only maintenance is take out the wood chips, put in new wood chips. And then what you do is you sandbag the denitrifying reactor, and you just divert the water back into the original water course. So it involves a little bit of hydrology, and that means that it works best in areas that have less change in topography, so that way it's easier to tweak this and you have a little bit of area to work. And of course, so many rivers are channelized at this point that doesn't work everywhere, but it's a nice, easy way to do some like basic organic chemistry to get nitrogen out of the water column. And there's a significant upfront cost because you got to get equipment out there and then dig. And then sometimes you'll want, depending upon the base, like you may want to pour some sort of an impervious basin underneath the bioreactor, like a concrete. So that way you have like a nice set for the nitrogen to sit into, and it's not going to then percolate further down into water table from underneath that. But it's an interesting mechanism that started to show up in like really big farms, and now it's as a technique just starting to like percolate out, pardon the water humor, into smaller mechanisms. So,
and I want to just add that as you were saying that, it triggered my memory that a number of years ago, I don't know if you know this, but my coworker did a demonstration project of one of those in Woodstock. So I will get you that information because it was a demonstration project that she was able to, and I actually helped on a couple of water samplings to do some testing to see if it actually worked as we thought it was supposed to. So I will get you the results of that. So that's cool that you're doing that.
Fantastic, yeah.
I can think of a farm on the Ashford Mansfield border that would be excellent for this if they're not already doing it.
Yeah, I think I know the farm you're talking about. It's pretty large, and it's got a lot of activity going on up that way. So
for years and years, the cow's manure just ran into the pond, so the pond's pretty chewy, as the water flows through there. Good. That's a very interesting project.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that could be a demonstration BMP actually as part of what we're doing.
Yeah,
potentially.
yeah.
Is
Neat.
it an expensive endeavor?
To quote a coworker yesterday, everything's expensive now. But this is a 5-figure project, not a 6-figure project in terms of what these come out to be. But it's also a 5-figure project. So probably additional funding sources could be needed, but that could be a recommendation. And then this body outside of the grant that's currently getting us operating, further things to pursue as we build those relationships with people in the watershed.
NRCS has a conservation innovation grant, and that's, I think, what we got to do that. I'm sorry, my memory is so good.
No, I never think of NRCS grants because NRCS can't fund municipalities. So when I have my grant seeking hat on, I can't do that, but anybody else can. And this is not a town.
As ECCD.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All good thoughts. Let's move on to plan of work. And Maura had provided us with an example. Maura, do you want to go over this?
Yeah. So what you're seeing is an example of a plan of work, which is one of the things that this advisory group / committee needs to come up with, as I was talking about, for each of the work groups to have specific, here they're called priorities. I mean, you can call them priorities, tasks, whatever makes sense. So this is for a very small watershed, Baker Cove Watershed down in Groton, Connecticut, that I actually lead as well. And we nicknamed ourselves Backwhack because we thought that was fun. So yeah, and it's a small group. So we just came up with some projects. This is only a sampling of they have about 7 or 8 different things that they're working on. They decided to do an 18-month. They call it this is a simplified plan of work because there's obviously a lot more detail in this, but just so that when you just quickly look at it, you can see the information. And it's July 2025 to December 2026. So just like thinking about this in terms of this is an example of a way to do ours, or the one here. And so the first one, Good Housekeeping Program, they decided to try to outreach because they have a lot of issues with fats, rags, oils, grease, causing blockages in sewer. We don't necessarily have that here because we don't have a lot of sewer. So just as an example of, what they chose, they made it, they sort of set a priority. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. Oh, well, priority, I don't think it has a key, but it's basically high, medium, low. It's probably self-explanatory. The cost, you see like $1 sign, $2 signs, $3 signs, and then you see the cost key down below. We know it's going to be a low cost thing, so it's good to kind of define, for future too, because we talk about how we want this group to continue into the future. So just, defining the costs. And then they chose to take some goals from the plan and sort of rewrite them and put them into categories. So they have like goal 1, education, goal 2, ecology mitigation. So, we could do something like that, have it just, be different goals depending on what our goals are. And then funding, what's the status of funding? Are funds needed? Sometimes the towns actually down there surprisingly had some overages in their budgets, so they had extra money, not a lot, but enough to come up with this, be able to print brochures, so things like that, which was really nice. And then ECCD was able to chip in a little bit because they were, willing to do it. We chipped in as well. And then we tried to define the partners that were involved in each one. And honestly, I have to say for the progress, the percent, it hasn't worked out so well. I thought, it would be like, oh, this is 50% done, but it's hard to define for a lot of them, like public ed, schools, when you're educating students, like what is the way to define if it's 50% done? Because it's a continuing thing. So, that could be rethought because in retrospect, that probably didn't work out so well. And then just having the project lead listed and the project team. So who's helping to get this done? Again, I guess I recommend in order to create this, the larger group, whoever was really interested in or felt like they had the ability to have good input on creating this, formed a smaller subgroup. I hate to almost say that because we have a whole bunch of work groups, right? And then, but I think that would be just temporary, right? Short term to come up with the style of what you want it to be, and then actually bring in all of the work group priorities and put them in and sort of fill it in. So it wouldn't hopefully be a long-term thing. And so, I don't know, 3 people, 4 people, something like that, that really don't mind, helping out with that, I think is kind of a good way to go instead of trying to do it through a larger group, just because you're going to have a ton of different, opinions and things. And so maybe just that group comes back to the larger group and says, this is what we've come up with. And if anybody has anything they really want to change. So that's kind of my my spiel on a way to do this. I mean, obviously, if you guys have other ideas, certainly up to you. It's something that kind of has worked, like I said, for another group, and then they look at it every 18 months and they change it. And hopefully, and they even have a section that I didn't put here of completed tasks. So, you know, you can have that as well. So it's kind of a nice way to keep track. So any thoughts?
A question first. So on the agenda, it says discussion of plan of work for project duration. So the plan of work example is what you've got here. And I think that looks great. It's got, you know, it's a really compact, concise way to report not only what you're doing, but, you know, summarize it and indicate status. So when you say project duration, you mean, obviously you have a time frame. Is this, is the plan of work, which I think it would be just by its title, it's kind of your it's your guidance document going forward. So I'm assuming you would want the work groups to have those plan of works in place soon. And I mean really soon. And then the duration, when you say project duration, what do you mean by project duration? That's my question. Is that the end of this working advisory group's task, or does it extend beyond that? Because at our first meeting, Deep's outlook was building capacity. So does this, and I don't mean to overcomplicate it, but does this plan of work include the building of capacity or just the work of this advisory?
I would suggest that you just take it for however many months that this group has to work.
Yeah,
So
okay.
until December 2026. And
Yeah.
then you can
And then it can be
hopefully this group's
extended.
going to continue.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's what this group does. They, every 18 months, they revisit it, except they revisit it before 18 months
Right.
because it expires, you know, so they use that. And it's really a lot of, it's just the guidance, you know, you want to have that.
Yeah, I call it, in my vernacular, it's a simple to-do list.
Yeah.
And in a group, you need a work plan because there's multiple people, multiple priorities.
Right.
So
And
just
once people know what their charge is, they probably wouldn't look at this too often.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it, it's really a deliverable to Deep as well, to say, look, this is what we're doing. They need to have, you know, what are you
it's a
working
good
on?
framework for coordinating amongst groups and individuals. So just remind me that, so what's our focus? The deliverable, this is a deliverable and we're kind of concluding by when? I just forgot.
December 26th.
December 2026?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
16 months from now.
Yep. Yeah, and I think this is a great idea because once, and I'll make one other comment. I think what the work groups have done so far is great. I mean, what you've presented today, I'm looking at going, okay, and you guys know, I was a little bit skeptical in the very beginning. And I'm less skeptical right now because there seemed to be significant definition of what we're trying to do. And so, you know, my outlook, having this plan of work really helps because then we can all go off and do our own thing. You can highlight and cross off some of the things you've done, but then this is a good way to encapsulate and more, it kind of goes to my original question, what's our deliverable? And the plan of work is the deliverable in general, but it's the individual items in there. And that's what the work groups are going to focus on, filling in those boxes. So, okay. Thank you.
One of the things I was thinking of as we put this plan of work together for each work group, because I don't see anything here. We've got the project lead, but we really don't have work group, a reference to that particular work group. If we could do that somehow in the column and maybe even make anything that they're particularly working on, maybe a different color column. Just a thought, just so everybody kind of knows like, okay, you know, this group is working more on these things. but overall, we're working together because there will be some overlap. So one of your suggestions was that a smaller group work together to come up with a template for this work group, for the advisory group?
Yeah, like what you just mentioned, like, oh, we need to add a column because this isn't going to, work for our needs right off the bat. So
Yeah.
you're going to move things around. You're going to say, well, that's not as important to us, so just to get it a little more refined, and if you want to add things. So I think it's a good idea to meet a couple times and just kind of get it together. But that doesn't mean that the work groups can't be, moving forward and figuring out. And I agree, Mike, that I guess I envision within the next meeting or two, there's going to be something solid that you can say. And I guess this group needs to decide too, do you approve of these things? I don't know how formal, we haven't been too formal, but I think if everybody just generally agrees, yeah, these are things that were actually mentioned in the plan. We just figured because there might be things that people wanted to do that might not be in the plan or something. And so we just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that, yeah, these are actually things that are going to help with water quality and the goals of the plan.
And just, I'm sorry, to add, to use your term, Kathy, it's a template today, and then it becomes a final document in the future. And as you move forward, it becomes more and more like the final document. But of course, up until the last day, you can take a column out or a category out. So,
one thing that I'd like to point out. So right now, the town is working on updating all of the management plans for our town forests and our parks. And so when I look at this, I think very much about a management plan, right? A plan of work and a management plan are kind of similar. This becomes a what are we going to try to do over the next 18 months?
Yeah.
But the deliverables that come out of this yield a lot of ongoing maintenance activities because this project isn't, God, I hope this project isn't going to end on January 1st, 2027. Like the things that we do over the next year and a half will then turn into another type of task, which will be stuff we couldn't get done, but still want to do versus stuff we did and now need to keep doing. So I think that just an important thing for each of these, right? We have the task, priority, cost, funding, partners, progress. But then I think we need to list for each of these like the deliverable or the timetable to check in again or something like that, such that the people who are here, if everyone here got hit by a bus, right, and then in 2027 all of our replacements pick this up, they know, okay, so this was what was done, and then what they anticipated needing to do was 3 years from now we have to check on this, yearly we have to check in with these, every 5 years we have to do this, and that enables a long-term work plan that people can pick up as individuals come and go. I do not. I have so little capacity right now. I have so little capacity. After the two work committees and agreeing to be secretary for this body, I have no time. I wish I did.
So who's really good with spreadsheets? Because it's like, important part here.
Guys, I have not volunteered for a project group yet. This is kind of up my alley. I'm happy to take first pass and start the template. And again, one other comment is I think it's absolutely critical that the work groups just keep doing their thing in whatever format, not whatever format, but in the manner in which they are used to thinking and organizing themselves. But we have to, at some point soon, then it starts to feed into this. And I don't think a document like this necessarily should constrain what each work group does or how they do it. It's like, get your homework done. Don't tell me how to do it. I'll get my homework done. Don't tell me how to do it. So, but I'm happy to work on this, and I can draw upon others. And I think it is important that work groups have not necessarily every work group, but work groups are involved in the development of this, one or two people, as you suggested.
So I'm just wondering, Mike, if you would be willing to kind of put together, a template just based on this, leave it relatively blank. So then we can send it out to people on that smaller
Exactly.
group with some feedback.
Yeah.
And then we can send it out to the work groups and they can start using it as their mini template
Yeah.
for their work plan.
Yeah.
And then we can add it on to the bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as
Plan.
time goes on, as the work groups fail to find a slot to put something in, they come back and say, hey, we need this slot, or you got 5 columns here. We're not doing that. You take them out. So yeah, no, I'm happy to take first pass. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, I think you said Maura had provided the notes from each one of the project groups.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure Maura can send that back out. There's a Google link.
Yeah.
That you go to Google Drive and then you can open it up and you can see all the meeting minutes from each
Okay.
of the work groups.
Yeah.
I
And
need to share that with you because I shared it with everybody in a work group.
Okay.
And you were, so yeah, that makes
Okay, if you
sense.
could share that, then what I'll do is I'll take this template or this document and then read those minutes in some detail and then using this as a framework, try to put something that makes sense for us.
Yeah, I'll have to send you this document.
Yeah, if you could, that would
Yeah.
be helpful.
Do you
It's
think
not
we
in there.
could send it out to just anybody that's on our list? Because there might be people not in groups that are interested in maybe joining a group.
This is where it gets a little tricky because I haven't worked a lot with the Google Drive. So this is owned by ECCD and I'm giving access. I'm only got it at comments. If I give everybody edit access, I'm worried that, so that's why I'm not sending it to everybody. I feel like if people want it, they will approach me. Like I'm kind of using that right now as, yeah, it's not real. I haven't done this a lot before. So if anyone has any ideas of how to do that in a way that I have the documents that I put on the drive, of course, on my own computer, so that if we have to, we could go back to those. I don't know. I'm just one of those people that to allow everybody to edit. And I know, though, at some point that's helpful, right? To be for everyone. I think that's the point of these Google documents is that everybody can work on it at the same time and make changes or make comments. But I don't know. That scares me a little bit. Because I'm like,
Let me intercede just for a second. So Kathy, is your question, I think there's 2 issues. Sharing a document, and that can have lots of connotations. It could be a PDF uneditable. It could be a hard copy.
Yeah.
Or sharing, you have privileges, edit, reviewer and so forth. I think what Kathy might have been suggesting and what I'm suggesting is at this point, I think it's probably not appropriate to do sharing in that you're editing, co-editing or collaborating, but getting the information out that's usable to you. So, and for me, sharing initially by email is perfect. You give me the live document, I share it, I save it. I don't have to worry about someone,
that's fine.
as Maura suggested, editing. But at some point, when you get to the point of collaboration, then you can address the issue of, okay, how are we going to edit together? And Google, my experience is that Google Drive, that's a great way to do it. But as Maura suggested, just by a show of hands, not everybody is interested in that or proficient, so you have to do it with a fair amount of caution. So
I was just thinking in terms of if anybody wants to look at what the work groups were working on. I mean, I think we've kind of solidified the team pretty much. Most of the people that have been coming more regularly have agreed to be on at least one work group. So maybe we don't have to worry so much about that. But I just thought it would be nice for people who are kind of still in the periphery and reading the notes and stuff. They might just get it from the general meeting notes, kind of where we're at.
yeah, but I think sharing, and again, by sharing, putting something on Google Drive doesn't mean folks have editing privileges or rights, but sharing is, it's like a website. You, as you're suggesting, Kat, you definitely want people to see what we're doing because it may elicit interest, which is what we need. So, so Maura, I don't know if that's difficult on your end in terms of the technology, or are you just have concerns about sharing beyond the
No,
borders of the group?
Right now I have everybody ability to comment. And what I think, if people, I've already told people that the minutes for this meeting are on our website. So I think as long as we, which I'm sure you'll incorporate what the work groups are doing in the minutes, isn't that a good way for them to, get that information? So I think we're okay.
Yeah, I didn't know, how detailed, because our work groups are giving a report. And most of the reports we had today are fairly, I don't want to say lengthy, but they're lengthy. I don't expect that Michael's going to write up minutes specific to all of that. That's why I was wondering if somebody else, hadn't been coming to our meetings and just wanted to look at, I wonder what the cool water, riparian group is doing, if they might access the Google Drive and just look without being able to comment or to make any edits. I didn't know. I'm not thinking that too many people are going to actually make edits to the minutes. So that's why I was wondering.
Well, actually, I think some people, had asked to see the minutes before for certain groups, and I actually changed some of the minutes on so I felt like people should be able to do that. It's kind of like it's the same idea of like sending out emails. You ask people, okay, this is the draft minutes. Does anyone have anything I missed? And then you put out a final minutes. It's just doing it on the Google Drive. So it's saving all the steps of like everybody emailing back and forth. I think that's the whole point of the Google, that you can do all this a lot easier. I mean, I don't know. So I'm hoping it's easier, but we'll get there.
Well, then for now, let's just keep it that it's people that are on the work groups have access to the Google Drive. And then maybe, we can.
Okay, so how are you going to get me those documents?
I'm just going to
work.
email you.
Email, perfect. Okay. Got it.
Any other comments or questions on that?
Maura, I'm sorry. Those will be live documents. I'll be able to edit them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda was talking about the Natchaug Watershed in terms of maps that we might be able to use. I had asked Maura, if she had something available that we could think about using when we go to public events, or we're doing, one of our BMPs and, it's open to the public. How can we help people understand what a watershed is and the towns that are part of the Natchaug Watershed? And so Maura had created this map that we have as a model right here. And it shows the sub-watersheds, so you can see the different colors. So I wanted to get people's feedback about something like this versus something larger. And I'm going to have Maura's going to pull out a map that the Willimantic Waterworks had provided to us. Tyler had provided. It's very large. I guess what I was envisioning is something we could create that would be like a poster board, and we could put it up as an easel whenever we're out in the public. But I think this would be pretty large.
Very detailed. Yeah.
We probably don't need 5-foot contours for educating the public about. I mean, it's interesting if you're a topography nerd like me, but we probably don't need something to that scale.
This might be important if somebody's in a work group and we're trying to narrow things down, but I don't think it's something that we could really use for the public. But if we can come up with something, even on paper, and then we can look at having it printed out as a poster board that we can share and bring, different work groups might be doing something with the public. I think it will help people kind of come together, at your table, or, ask questions like, oh, where am I in the watershed? Which river, is in my town? Because a lot of people, love to look at maps, and it's a point of conversation. We've done this with the Wellington Conservation Commission. Whenever we have a table, people come right over to the maps and they want to look at them in the open space. So the only thing I'd suggest about this particular map, Maura, would be if we can somehow outline at least the main rivers, the Fenton, the Mount Hope, the Natchaug, and also the Willimantic Reservoir, so people can see where that's draining to.
The other recommendation I'd make is you want the main roads, you want like the highways to go through there, because the first thing people do after they look at a map and kind of go, okay, yeah, that's my town, is where's my house? That's what they always want to know. So get the main roads on there and people can start orienting themselves, because no one actually thinks about town lines from the air unless you're a planner.
So Kathy, if I could again volunteer. I've been working, I didn't realize you guys were working on this. I also didn't realize Tyler was working on this. I have a fair amount of expertise in mapping and high level presentation, and just as all of you are saying about, when you know your audience, you have to be very careful, not careful, you have to be cognitive of what they're interested in. So what I would offer to do, I don't have a large format printer, but I have a 11 by 17. I'll bring at our next meeting a couple of 11 by 17 drawings with various, something similar to what Maura has, but with the roads, the rivers, with a significant amount of abstraction so that people can understand it, but not. I'm with Mike on this one. I love drawings like that, but that's too detailed. This drawing, without being critical, that's too abstract. It's 4 blocks of information, which is good and useful, and in the beginning of a report, absolutely appropriate. But I think what you're after is what Mike is suggesting. Okay, where are we? How do I, as a new consumer of this information, relate? So ultimately, I'm interested, just so I can make sure I get the right detail, what scale, are you thinking of ultimately printing it in hard copy? And you're thinking 3 feet by 4 feet, or?
24 by 36 is pretty easily doable on the town's plotter.
So do you have a color?
We have a color plotter.
Okay.
I could, if you give me the file,
Yeah,
I can print that.
And then like I said, I'll bring examples because I have access to some very, very good watershed maps that I think it will. And I'm going to share this with everyone. It's not going to take me more than 5 minutes to do it. The resource I have is actually pretty good.
What are you going to do? You're going to download the sub-regional basins and then slap on the DOT highway map and the watercourses map?
USGS actually has, I think, exactly what you're looking for.
Yep. That was my thought too.
Yeah.
Well, I had trouble finding these, so I actually have the shape files I can send you from, I got them from Deep, because they're not in a lot of places. They're like hard to find.
Yeah. But the resource I have pretty much will do. And again, if you guys don't like it, we'll just fine tune it. But I'll bring you some examples of different levels of abstraction and make sure that, and we may decide maybe a little bit bigger might be better, or a little bit smaller might be better. And we can, and I know you're GIS, so you know there's lots you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my kind of thought is I go to a lot of different events as like a booth.
Mhm.
And honestly, that 11 by 17 is actually a really good resource. So we have the Dark Night Sky that we
Yeah,
have.
I love the 11 by 17.
And being able, like, if we're going outside, having something that isn't going to blow away in the wind that you can hold is something that you don't realize that you need to think about until you're.
Yeah, and in
chasing
the
it
end,
down
we
the
may
hallway.
want to have, if we have 11 by 17, that's easy to print. If you have a larger, you can have a couple of them on foam board and you can bring them to meetings and put them on an easel. So, but I'll work on that before our next meeting. I've got time and resources to do that.
Thank you. Roger, you had your hand?
Just in addition to hard copies, will you be able to have something that folks tuning in can look at this?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, once you get the core, you can turn it into, something that's easy to post in a report.
Yep.
So,
Very good.
Were you saying that so that when people are online next time we meet, they can also look at the map? So if you can send whatever you're going to print out to Maura.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
she can have it
Yeah.
available. Great.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted just to mention, there's an outreach opportunity coming up. It might be a little too early for this group, but there's Third Act, which I'm not sure if people are familiar with because I wasn't, to be honest with you. It's a group of, it's a nationwide group started by Bill McKibben, and it's for people over 60 to get more involved on climate action and democracy protection. And they're having a Connecticut Sunday, which will be on the actual Sunday is September 21st at Central Connecticut State University. They're having a big program. But locally, there's a group here that's active with Third Act, excuse me, that is going to be putting on what they're calling Sunday on Saturday in stores on September 20th. It's going to be at the town square, which is over on the corner of Dog Lane and Royce Circle. And they're really going to be showcasing solar power, wind power, talking about sustainability. And they said if we'd like to have a table there, because a lot of what we're doing has to do with climate action and climate, mitigation. Forests are carbon storage sinks and, help to mitigate temperature and prevent drought and so on. So I just wanted to throw it out there. If anybody is interested in doing a table, Maura has brought some handouts from ECCD that could be put on the table. We could maybe make up we've got a Natchaug Watershed fact sheet that Maura had made. And we could have stuff like that out there and maybe have a sign-up sheet. We might get some UConn students who'll be milling around. It'll be after the kids are back in school. Maybe we can get some people to join the advisory board that way as well, or volunteer to be part of some things in the future. So it's just an idea. If anybody's interested in having a table, I'd be happy to be one of the people doing that if somebody wants to join me that day. And it's from 10 to 2.
Is this online anywhere, information on that site?
I can send you what I've gotten so far. I'm working with Grace Damio, who's one of the local people. They have a local chapter of Third Act. And I don't think they've solidified exactly who's going to be at this event yet, but she said there would be table space if the Watershed Group wanted to participate. So
okay. I'm just curious. I was going to share this with our commission. So,
as much as I can, I'll send the information out as I get it.
Thank you.
We were invited at the last Green Valley, and I actually this morning was trying to find more information about it online, and I could not find specifically the stores one about it online. They do have a lot of, not necessarily actions that day, but a lot of other events planned. But the stores one was not listed.
Yeah. I don't think they have a lot specifically about the one in stores out yet because they haven't solidified what they're going to be doing. But I think it's a nice opportunity for us, kind of just get our feet wet a little bit, see what the interests might be too locally.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to go to. And I'm sure they would like to spread the word, get people to show up. So
yeah, if you know of anybody that's interested in solar, that's going to be their focus, but it's also about sustainability.
I just wanted to add, if that could be a goal maybe for the map, the printed map to be done for that, that would be really nice. It's like another month.
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Is any of your local contact, Kathy? Do you know Headley Freak? Is that a name? Okay, because I know he's active in the third act. I don't know at what level though, if he's more on the national focus or local. So, all right.
Yeah, that would be great if we could, you know, even if it's kind of a draft map.
Yeah, yeah.
we can
No, and
put
I
up.
think, I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually a good, I mean, I said next meeting. I don't even remember what our next meeting is, but that would be a good thing to have there. A good eye catcher.
Yeah, I have an easel, and if you got me, if Michael is able to print something out,
Yeah.
I could just spray it onto the
Yeah.
foam board.
Yep.
So. Okay, stakeholder updates. Is there anything that people want to share either from their town or from organizations that they're part of? Anything they think that might be going on that might influence the watershed, or just thought we'd have an opportunity to share if anybody knew of things going on. For example, even large projects that might be going on that could be an issue down the road for the watershed. City.
So I have a few things. We are going to be doing a riffle bioassessment training, hopefully in the next month and a half. I don't have an exact date for that yet, but please keep an eye out and come look at bugs in cold water streams with us.
Great. I think if you want to pass that information on to Maura, maybe she doesn't mind sending it out to the group. That'd be great.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you. Anybody else? Looking for hands for the people online?
John, this might be an opportunity to talk about what you brought, and yeah, you can let the group. Okay. Oh, so this is more maybe about the MOU?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Huh? No, I think that's next, so we could talk about it now, I think.
To borrow the design.
So John's getting out. I'm not sure you can hear online. Just getting something out right now, so hang on.
Home. Find out, I borrow these. And been displayed. And
All the signatures. That's all the signatures.
and there's this whole old thing. And I kept on borrowing them, so eventually they gave them. Because nobody else seemed particularly interested. So all this stuff is very welcome to it.
Thank you, John. So John just, we may have talked about this in the beginning, the Natchaug River Basin Conservation Compact. I don't know if you guys remember that's what this whole group is based off of. That was back in, I don't know, 2011. And they actually had all of the towns sign on to the compact, which has a number of, different things that are similar to what, as far as the importance, right, of the watershed. And so it's all statements having to do with that the towns agree that regionally this is all important. And so they all did actually sign. And I didn't know for sure, because what I was told when I reached out to the Nature Conservancy who led that project was that each, this is the MOU, so each town got their own signed version. Well, Union didn't find theirs, and I don't know if other towns have even looked. So basically, this is really nice to know for sure that the towns all did sign onto this. This is helpful in getting the MOU for this current project, because we can say for sure that, yes, you signed on in this such and such a date. So that's really nice to have. And then you have a map there that I actually ended up putting that map, a version of that map on the fact sheet, because I had gotten that. So, and what are the other things that you have, John? These. That's the watershed.
Old out thing.
Oh,
And we played out, set this stuff up. Plus trail. Yeah, if we did.
oh, nice. That could be really great. Yeah.
One less thing to do.
Sorry for the folks that can't see, but basically there are a lot of, there's a whole trifold of different maps, I think. Yeah,
Yes, Green Valley. And I used to go.
the last Green Valley? Or,
I don't think there's a
Oh.
second Green Valley.
It
Well,
might
no.
be the Green Valley Institute, which
Yeah, yeah.
was us.
There is another Green Valley?
It was technically us,
Oh,
but it
yeah,
was like
yeah.
a partnership with the colleges. But it was like a Yukon Last Green Valley partnership.
Yeah, Steve
John?
Broderick,
Well, that's cool.
Holly.
John, can you put your microphone on and just tell people how you were involved? I think it's a cool story because you are in that story map. If anyone got a chance to see the story map that I sent, I think I sent a link to. Did you want to get on that and tell people how you're involved with the music?
Oh, the last 20 years, I've hosted informal folk music weekly and in my home, and occasionally we played out. And we ended up calling ourselves the Natchaug Jam because of my passion for the river. And I used to go up to Wolf Den, I guess it is there, and borrow this stuff and set it up as part of our show. And then eventually they gave it to me because no one else seemed to have any particular interest in it, and they had sort of scaled back what they were doing up there. So anyway, I ended up with it.
And tell us about, you did, for the story map, you did a video with Holly Drinketh of the Nature Conservancy,
Yes,
and you had music, the
Yeah.
jam music.
the jam
So if
music's
people
in it.
didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to see
And
that,
that's on YouTube.
it's great.
That's
Yeah,
on
I shared
YouTube.
the
You
link.
can see it. And it actually has my wife and kids in it too.
So that's
It's a whole
neat.
movie of sorts. So anyway, and that it did a long time ago. Also have a copy of I think of the Willimantic Chronicle because they signed this at Diana's Pool.
Yes, and I saw the picture from the newspaper with, I don't know if all the selectmen were there, but they were holding that
Yes.
document up, but it looked like some of the signatures were missing. That's why I'm glad you have the one with all of them.
Ah,
Thank you for that very
Yeah.
much. I think those maps are
you're
going to be
very
really
welcome. Glad
helpful.
it could be of use.
Glad to get them out of your house.
That's wonderful. I think that's kind of like a real treasure there that you hung on to those.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And in terms of my potential help to you folks is, I still fool around with video and I can maybe help out in some way. I wrote the script for that one with Howie Brinkus' help. And I think she narrated.
She did.
And she did a great job.
And there are pictures, I think, of your wife riding horses.
Yeah,
And
my wife riding a horse.
So everybody should check that out. And then keep in mind that John still does video. So if one of the work groups wants to try to recreate, do a little video or something, to try to be more social media current, right?
Well, the one thing I thought of is you mentioned, the water, counting bugs in water. And I went on one of those and of course found out I was way too old to help. I just slowed everything down, but I did learn. But anyway, if that kind of thing of some kind of instruction what when you get new people that you're interested in getting into this, I could be helpful in putting something together to show what is done, that kind of thing.
Well, I think it's valuable having your memory of these things that then stirs.
Yeah, I didn't actually show up that day. I forget why not. But that's why I had to use the newspaper picture in the movie because that's all I had. I didn't actually get there for that. So anyway, you're welcome to all that stuff, and I'm happy to think that it might be of some use to you.
Okay, should I segue into the update on the MOUs? Okay, so speaking of all of that, John was gonna potentially meet with me. I've yet reached out to the chaplain selectmen, but I was gonna try to get on the Board of Selectmen meeting, the next one they have. So if you wanted to come, that would be very helpful. So I think I wrote on the next slide.
And just let me know when that meeting is.
Yes, absolutely. So for the MOUs, I have 3 in hand, so to speak, 3 in progress that I'm told are forthcoming, and then 2 I still need to go to Board of Selectmen meetings, so Chaplain being one, and Woodstock, I was supposed to go to their meeting Thursday night, and they canceled. So seems to happen quite a bit with Board of Selectmen meetings. I feel like that happened in Ashford a couple times too. So I don't know if it's summer and people are away, but so I think we're in good shape. I feel really good about that. And thank you for all that have helped get those MOUs. Appreciate it.
Okay, and as Maura had been asking for everybody, please remember to record the time that you spend on any of your projects, or if you're doing outreach, talking to other people about what we're doing, trying to get people involved. That all counts. Those are all time spent on this project. And then the last thing on the next steps was just to touch base, keep this on our radar, because although it's far away, it's going to be a larger event is the field day and the tour at Wind and Waterworks on May 2nd. So, thinking about from each work group, maybe there are some particular things that the work groups are doing that we can highlight too on that day. We can think about maybe having some tables outdoors, or whatever the group wants to do that day. Have you, Mike, have you guys talked more with Mike Turgeon and Tyler about what, I didn't know if you guys had any more conversation about that for May 2nd, or it's just a date right now?
Just the date, and we need to get an idea, time of day, the week, but now that we've got the date, that answers that question.
Yeah.
The water department's had a number of them. And so we've got it down to parking, traffic, access to the building, things like that. So I think at this point, it may be a little soon, but maybe not. We're just talking about what's the goal, what are the goals and objectives?
Is your mic on?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So at this point, the questions would be, what are the goals and objectives? What's the time frame? How do you want to? Actually, our last open house was a little disorganized, and we had groups crossing paths inside and outside, and so just a little bit scheduling. And then, is there going to be presentations? What are you going to do if it rains? Are there going to be refreshments, coffee and donuts? And maybe at this point, specifically, what do you want highlighted at the water department? They've got a pump demonstration. You can get inside and see the gravity filters. We have a big solar array. We have a 250-year-old pump house. That's a beautiful building, which people can go. It's not a lot on the grounds, You can get up to the reservoir, but there's not safe access. I don't know, you might be able to fish off the shore. Fishermen would probably be okay. And there's probably plenty of parking. So I don't think it would be an issue. But at some point we'll need to, who, what, when, where, why list. But at this point, I think we're all set.
Okay, good. We might even want to, I know this sounds crazy, but we might even want to talk about a smaller group to do a little bit of planning around that as we get closer. So, okay, thanks. Anything else that people wanted to share today? Any other questions before we break for a month? Okay, well, again, thank you, everybody. Anybody online? Thanks for
Yes.
your attention and being part of this, and we'll see you in a month for the big meeting, but keep working on your groups. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Real quickly before we disappear, Mike, you mentioned the denitrifying bioreactor and something about having a list of folks in the area that would benefit from this would help you with your application. Could you drop a line tomorrow to explain that because that's something I could take to the farmers, to the Ag Commission.
Yes,
But
I will.
I need to be more clear about it.
Yeah, when do you need that?
Tomorrow would be good.
Tomorrow I
They
can
have a
do.
meeting tomorrow.
If you
Okay.
needed it like 30 minutes from now, I couldn't because I got to run to do something else. But yes, I can
Yeah,
put
no,
that together, send it tomorrow. You'll have it tomorrow.
If I can have it by tomorrow afternoon, it'd be perfect.
Can do.
Thank you.
Maura, can you send that out to everybody if you don't mind? Because there are some farmers and stuff, for example, I know in town, so thanks.
Well, I was wondering is that something that can be done on the side, even if we don't have an ag work group? Is that what you're saying? Because
Yeah.
I wonder.
So there's yes, this is something that can be done on the side, and we can just kind of like work with farmers and encourage and then document as part of this. Even if we wind up, even if we get a bunch of interest and we decide that we wanted to apply for another grant from the state to fund it, because if you had a bunch of people, trying to put that together, the Stormwater 319 grant is probably taking applications come November. So, like if we get interest, we could try to do something. I will write my thoughts down so I'm not rambling about science incoherently, and then I will send that over to you, and you will forward to Joe.
Yeah,
Okay.
you had me at farmers getting something for nothing. That's gotta be
It's farmers' favorite thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, it's most people's favorite thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would love that.
Wasn't meant to demean
Yeah.
farmers. Most people like free stuff. Especially when it makes their lives easier. So
Especially, their
Thank
business. So
I gotta run.
yeah, I would just say the 319, that may not be till like February because we write them all the time and we just had one in February. So
It's interesting. I heard
they're going to add it sooner.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
So
All right, everyone. Anything else before we go? Okay, have a good month.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right.